So the XM2w is finally here, and yeah, we've been waiting on just a little bit, man. Just a little bit. I think the pre-orders opened like spring 2022, and we're in fall 2024 now. So yeah, it's definitely been a long time coming, but so just a disclaimer, I've been using it about a week for now, and I did get this for free, but not for any kind of review purposes. I got it for free because the pre-orders took so long that they just decided to give them out for free, even if you canceled your pre-order. So just an overview, it supports up to 4K wirelessly. It's using a 3395 sensor. It weighs about 62 grams. Comes with a high polling rate dongle in the box. It has their custom KLGX switches for the main clicks. What else? I think that's about it, but that's going to run you about 110. So on Max Gaming, it's 110. On Amazon, I believe it's going to be a bit more expensive, around 130, 140. So let's just talk about if this mouse is like, a masterpiece or it's just too little too late. I think it's a bit between, the price going to be 100 to 140. It's a little up there. If it's on the lower end of that range, then I do think it's a good deal just because it comes with the high polling rate dongle in the box. I like Endgame gear breaking from the trend of having, separate dongles for some reason. It makes no sense, right? If you're going to flash all these specs, all this 4K nonsense, as the marketing for the mouse, I better get it when I just buy it outright, right? So let's just go into the build quality. The build quality is good so far. First of all, they have their coding, right? Endgame gear always has good coding. So the main clicks are great. These are the KLGX switches that they've been boasting about. These were in the OP1 8K as well, which is a community favorite. Still good here. The middle click is also a good, satisfying switch. So shout out to Endgame Gear for using a, crispy switch instead of, people cheaping out for dot switches on the middle click. Same with the side clicks, what you've come to love with Endgame Gear. They don't take their clicks lightly. The only thing I will say on the quality front for the clicks is that there is a bit of play on the buttons. For the side buttons. It's not pre-travel, it's just the plastic button itself is not sitting flush to the switch. I don't know what the reasoning is for that, and I don't believe I had this on my XM1Rs back in the day, but definitely not a deal breaker. The only thing I will say is that the difference in the actuation of the middle click and the main clicks and the side clicks is kind of off-putting. So the clicks are light, spammable, satisfying, but the middle click and the side clicks are heavier than the clicks. So this kind of throws you off. If you want to spam your side clicks in something like Fortnite or whatever game you're playing, maybe you play MOBAs, that might be something you have to get adjusted to. These side clicks are a little stiffer than the main clicks. So yeah, as you can hear, Endgame Gear doesn't play around with their buttons. Glad to see them, continue that trend here. The build is good, it feels solid, despite them having to cut down the weight. The XM1R was 70 grams back in the day. This is down to 62. Let's go ahead and check that out here. So yeah, 61.6 grams on my scale. Also a heads up, if you want to throw on the bigger skates, that might throw it off by like a percentage of a gram. Speaking of that, the skates are good as well. You see that you get these arc-shaped skates. In the box, you are going to get big fat skates. I prefer these. I wish they would have threw these on initially, but yeah. The last thing is the OP1 8K features a base with the skates exposing the screws so you can get into the mouse. For some reason, that's not the case here. I would have liked to seen that. It's kind of goes hand in hand with right to repair and all that stuff. You should be allowed to get into your mouse without like voiding warranty or ripping off your skates. I think that's kind of BS. I don't know why they took it off here. My theory is because the OP1 8K features hot swap switches. So if you're going to feature hot swap, you might as well let people get into the mouse easily. This one doesn't feature hot swap, but that's also another confusion. Why doesn't this feature hot swap? I've heard that the front end of the mouse is too low to feature hot swap. So yeah, my criticisms here is let us have the open screw design again with the skates. Let us get in there for whatever reason we might need, battery swaps, frame mods, whatever, and give us hot swap back, right? Maybe the narrative is that, the buttons are too low in the front to have hot swap, but if I can solder them, Last thing for the build here is the dongle and the cable that they give you. What I really don't like is that the cable port is very narrow. You see these like support walls around it. I really hate when mice do this because it makes you only able to use like the thinnest USB-C cables. Say you have other mice or keyboards or anything that uses USB-C, right? And you want to use the port. Well, you can't because you have to use their cable because the plastic is very thin and that's the only one that fits in their port. Next thing is that the tolerance is very tight on this cable, right? I will show you. Once you get in there, it's fine. Good on them for the attention to detail to give you a paracordic cable and give you the stress relief angle. The downside is, like I said, the tolerance. When I try to pull this thing out, I'll bring it up to the camera, you can hear it creaking. So yeah, you're kind of making the tolerance on the USB port so tight that it's literally damaging the mouse. It's literally creaking. I think that was a big concern for everyone with Endgame gear going from 70 grams to 60 grams. Same thing with Zowie going from the 80 gram range down to the 60, 65 gram range. Everyone's concerned with, are you going to sacrifice the structure of the mouse while doing this weight reduction? That's a big reason of why a lot of these brands didn't want to go down in weight. Of course, everyone did. Everyone went with the crazy weight reductions, but certain brands, Zowie, Vaxi, Endgame gear, they didn't really make it that high of a priority. So yeah, the fact that the USB cable makes the mouse start creaking in general is just very concerning because creaking happens over time. Then again, I'm of the opinion that creaking really isn't the biggest QC issue. I love to use a Pulsar X-Lite V3 that's creaky. I used a Death Adder V3 that was creaky as well, if you can see in my other videos. My main concern is with the hardware, the clicks, the scroll wheel, the side buttons. Make sure those last long. Make sure those last long over the years, and I can live with a creaking mouse. Next, I can showcase the software. Here you can see all the settings, CPI, DPI, whatever you want to call it. I put it on one level. You can do X and Y, ripple control, angle snapping. I don't recommend using either of these. LOD is going to be 1mm or 2mm, whatever you prefer. Just to go back again, the info section up here, software version. I did update the firmware separately, but you kind of have to download something separate, which is a criticism I have of this software. It'd be a lot easier if you just let us update the firmwares, any kind of firmwares up here. You see all these different firmwares and software versions. The only option is a factory reset, which I don't know how useful that's really going to be on a mouse. Advanced setting, you have motion sync. I have that off. Polling rate 4000 hertz. Slam click filter, motion jitter filter. I don't know what this is, but I do have the slam click filter on. One of my biggest criticisms of my Pulsar mouse is that it doesn't have a slam click filter. Around the same time that was a issue, Lamzu pushed a firmware update for their slam click filter. Pulsar we just don't have one. If you play low sense on Counter-Strike or Valorant and you do a 180 and you shoot your gun on accident, go fuck yourself. Button mapping, you can have left-handed mode. All these buttons, I guess you can remap them, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that. Power settings, I did change this to 2 minutes and then 3 minutes. There's a deep sleep and a power saving, which is cool. Nice to see. Deep sleep is probably going to, wait a few seconds before your mouse wakes up again, but it's going to save you a lot of battery over the long term, which is good when you have 4000 polling rate. Pairing, I guess you can pair dongles, but obviously I won't be doing that. So yeah, simple software. I would like to see a WebDriver. And again, like I said, give us the option to update firmware just from the software itself. It is kind of annoying to download a separate thing and then reopen the software. So yeah, I am kind of waffling fast here. Sorry about that, but I am kind of reviewing a 2 to 3 year old mouse that, probably should have released 1 or 2 years ago, considering it's using 3395. It's not up to date with the 3950 that the other mice are using nowadays. Now, I'm not going to really tell you that matters at all because, who really cares? Blind test, 99 times out of 10, you're not going to tell that 3950 to the 3395. It's just a matter of principle that the mouse is coming so late. But speaking of principle, I can't really hold them to that, because I got this mouse for free. I did pre-order years ago and then I canceled my pre-order. Might as well have that money if this mouse is just stuck in oblivion, right? And they did go ahead and send me a voucher regardless of that. And they introduced this new color, which I didn't order back then. It's kind of cool. It does match my Wooting ADHD if you saw my video. So besides all the critiques of the build and the software, the shape, using it in game, I can't really complain. It's just a modernized version, really good modernized version of a shape and mouse that a lot of us fell in love with years ago, myself included. It's just, I don't know, once that kind of novelty wears off, where you get the mouse, you're like, oh, okay, I remember this. Okay, it's modernized. It's nothing new. I think a lot of reviewers, RJN kind of said it, and I have the same theory, is that mice are getting boring nowadays, and the innovations really need to come in shapes, not tech or anything like that. 4000 hertz, it's not an innovation. It doesn't change the way you play, right? Making the same mouse that we had 2 years ago and just removing the wire and, shaving off 10 grams, that's not an innovation, it's not changing the way we play. It's just, you're just playing with a different shape, a different flavor of mouse. So yeah, I guess if you're just a diehard for the shape, you can go ahead and get it. It's a back claw grip shape, good for bigger hands. For me, at least, you guys know I am an ergo shill, so I don't really use symmetrical mice anymore, but this is one of the symmetrical mice I really can use. And I think the reason for that is it's just a very wide grip, right? A lot of ergo mice are pretty wide, like you can see. You know, everyone seems to be going towards smaller shapes. I'm not quite sure why. So yeah, this refresh coming out so late is actually kind of like a breath of fresh air for someone with big hands like me, you know, as you can see. So I do like that. I would have liked to have seen some updates. I feel like they got kind of lazy with this, but you know, it's been taking so long that they kind of had to do something. My critiques is that the shape or the clicks go to the edges of this mouse, right? And the problem with that is if you say use a 131 grip, or maybe you just want to put your ring finger up on this corner here, you can't do that. I mean, you can, but you risk clicking this, right? I would have liked to seen them update this like the OP1 where the walls kind of come up on the corners. That can also give it a bit of rigidity in the click tensioning and make the clicks more consistent. So I would have liked to have seen them like, you know, just update something, right? And those walls would have been a very good one right here on the clicks. Other than that, you know, it's kind of like, just like I said, it's just like the novelty of this kind of expires on you very quickly because every mouse is just so modern now. And if you're just making a modern mouse of a shape that, you know, people kind of loved 2 years ago, you know, if they don't really, really, really love that shape, then this kind of product is, you know, kind of dead on arrival, right? If this isn't like literally your shape made for your hand at this point in late 2024 when it's just coming out, I mean, what you probably already have like a Pulsar X2, you might have like a Lamzu Maya, you might have like a Ninjutsu Sora, right? You've already found something that's fitting your hand better, or you just have it already, right? So why get this if it's going to be so similar? You know, I do shout out Endgame gear for kind of inspiring a bunch of, you know, claw grip back home mouse shapes, right? But you do kind of just lose out if you just never release your mouse and, you know, you just birth so many clones in the industry, literal clones like the Lamzu Atlantis, right? So yeah, kudos to Endgame gear for finally getting this out, but let's just move on. Like, give us the OP1 4K and then give us an ergo shape. Ergo shape, please. Please, bro.